Tonight on Huckabee.
This single program represents the biggest threat to consumer choice and freedom that this country has ever seen.
The administration putting the squeeze on businesses in Operation Choke Point.
You've been in business a while, and now all of a sudden the federal government comes in and says, we just don't like what you do.
That's what happens.
Earlier this year, the Justice Department announced a program to crack down on the businesses that the Obama administration just doesn't like. The mission is nicknamed Operation Choke Point. The goal is to make it really difficult for businesses deemed high risk to have a bank account. Businesses such as pawn shops or lending stores, coin dealers, sellers of pharmaceutical drugs. Brian Brookman is the owner of a pawn shop in Michigan. His bank closed his business account 2 weeks after it was opened. Sandra Perry owns Cash Express in Mesquite, Nevada. She says she got turned down by 3 banks and 2 credit unions because her company was too high risk. I spoke to these 2 business owners and to Brian Wise of the U.S. Consumer Coalition earlier. Sandra, let me start with you because you were told that your business was high risk. Did they tell you what exactly that meant?
Well, they really didn't explain exactly what that meant. Other words, but I have talked to some bankers. They said they just can't meet the compliance that is required to deal with a company such as my company in the money service business.
So you're not a deadbeat. You haven't had a long history of failing to pay your bills. You don't have a lot of delinquent loans out there.
We have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and also I've never had a complaint filed against a company since I opened in 1997.
So you've been in business a while, and now all of a sudden the federal government comes in and says, we just don't like what you do.
That's what happens.
You know, I don't think most of us even know that it's possible for the federal government to decide it doesn't like a legal business. You're not running a drug ring. No. You're not doing anything illegal. You're not, going out and busting people's heads with baseball bats. So I assume that everything you do is kind of on the up and up, or you'd be in jail.
We're highly regulated, and we're audited every year. That costs thousands of dollars to pay for that audit, just to make sure that we are doing everything legally and according to regulation.
Now, Brian, you have a pawn shop in Michigan, and, I mean, my gosh, I've shopped at pawn shops, guitars and cameras for years and years. I didn't know it was a high-risk business for the consumer. What did they tell you when they came after you?
Well, they didn't give me any explanation at all. I just got a letter from Chase saying, oh, by the way, that account you opened 2 weeks ago, we're going to close that. No explanation. The bank manager had no idea why. I took her the letter, and she came back to me a couple days later and said, I can't find anything out either.
So even the bank was not aware of why you were being targeted?
No, sir. No idea. And this is a pawn shop in a small, upscale, classy community right downtown in a business district that attracts thousands of tourists every year. I mean, I'm just every bit the average guy, trying to carve out my piece of the American pie and support my family. I don't break any laws. I haven't done anything to draw any attention.
What does it do to your business if they say you can't have an account, a bank account?
Well, no business can operate without a bank. I have to be able to pay bills. I have to be able to process credit card payments when people buy things from me. Nobody really uses cash these days.
Nobody has any cash, Brian. That's why.
So
that's why they're using the credit cards. It's like the only thing we have right now. Sherry, same thing for you. What happens to your business if the bank says no can do?
Well, it would be very difficult to run our business without a bank. It would just be near impossible. Even our third payment processors, they're having problems too because of their clients. They're losing their bank accounts. Of course, it's a big snowball effect. So they've lost business. And it's just, I see it being such a big snowball effect. And I wish, really, I'm from Nevada. Harry Reid is our senator there.
Oh, how lucky you must feel.
Well, possibly he's done some good things. He has supported gun ownership. He has supported the pawn industry and also the short-term lending. But where is he right now? We need him right now to stop this Operation Choke Point.
Well, have you talk to his office? And if you have, what kind of response do you get from?
I've been waiting after I was on the show. I thought I might have a little more clout.
Of course, after my catty remark, you'll have to say that you defended him. By the way, I think I said Sherry. Sandra, Brian Wise, you're with the U.S. Consumer Council, and I want to ask you about how this is affecting businesses. When we ask the federal government about this, they say, oh, it's just a misunderstanding. That's all it is. Do you buy that?
No. In fact, I think that was part of their plan all along. This single program represents the biggest threat to consumer choice and freedom that this country has ever seen. The fact that the government can pick and choose winners and losers simply based on their political ideology is a threat to the American dream. I mean, these are small business owners that they have done everything right. They've followed all of the rules, and yet because the administration seems to not like their industry, and it's not just their industries, it's gun dealers and ammunition sales, it's pharmaceutical sales, it's multi-level marketing, so your Amway and Cutco knives and other businesses like that are all being affected. And so this is a threat to the American dream. And you know, we know of a little more than 100 businesses right now that have been affected, but we know that there are probably thousands more that just don't realize that because they lost their bank account earlier this year that it was due to Operation Choke Point.
See, I can see the federal government who doesn't really, this federal government anyway, this current administration doesn't care for firearms and wishes they could get rid of them. They'll never pass that in Congress. But if they can just get the Justice Department to say to a gun store, this guy can't have a bank account, he is out of business.
Well, that's really the genius program and what makes it so dangerous. The genius of this program is that they never went to Congress. These are all businesses that they have tried to legislate out of existence for the past 10, 20 years. But because they couldn't do that, they decided that they were going to end-run Congress and use the president's year of action, as he's talked about, to double down on this effort. And what we see, you know, just last month, the FDIC removed a list of high-risk merchants. That list of merchants was about 24 different merchants that they had identified as being, you know, ripe for consumer fraud. Well, what that was not a backing off of this program. That was a doubling down of this program. That was them taking any kind of certainty that the banks had, taking that away, so that now the banks have to be the morality police.
Sandra, do you know of other businesses in your community that have been targeted like you have?
I really don't know. I do know that a lot of businesses are not aware of what is going on, because I've called some businesses, even some gun shop owners. I do know what Brian was speaking of. Basically what happened, I called the banks that turned me down after I learned the FDIC had pulled the list. I still didn't have any luck. It didn't make any difference to them.
And Brian, what about you? Same thing? You have other businesses in your community that have been targeted like this?
None that I'm aware of, sir, but it's important to remember that my business, Pawn Shops, wasn't even on the list. The only thing I do that was on the list is I deal in antique currency, old vintage coins and things that people collect. Somehow that's considered high risk. I don't understand why, but I would just like to see the Attorney General come into my store and see my customers and my store and where it's at and what we do and meet me and then tell me to my face, well, you're high risk, I need to put you out of business.
You know what, even if you're high risk, so what? That's American pride. So what? If you don't make it, you don't make it. But it's your decision to go into business, and it's not the federal government's decision to say, I think this guy will make it and this guy won't. My gosh, Apple's computer would never have existed if the government had looked at Steve Jobs in his garage and said, this guy ain't going to make it. I mean, I'm just outraged by it. Look, I really appreciate you being here, and here's what I want to ask. If you're a business owner that's been targeted by this law or by this rule, it's not even a law, and if you've been targeted by the Operation Choke Point, I want you to let us know. Contact us on our Facebook page, Huckabee Show, because we want to hear from you. We want to keep following this story. I think it is an important one. I'll be honest with you, I've not heard anything about it. People need to know about it, and we're going to help make sure they do.